Monsters of the Multiverse and 1D&D are both nerfing Counterspell, but until 1D&D comes out, it is still one of the most powerful spells in the game. So while I still can, I want to talk about every single way I have been able to think of to make Counterspell more powerful. Let's start with a review of Counterspell and how it works, and then we will discuss every single way we can break it. Counterspell is a third level spell that you cast as a reaction when you see a creature within 60 feet of you casting a spell. It says, you attempt to interrupt a creature in the process of casting a spell. If the creature is casting a spell of third level or lower, the spell fails and has no effect. If it's casting a spell of fourth level or higher, make an ability check using your spellcasting ability. The DC equals 10 plus the spell's level, so a 9th level spell would be DC 19. On a success, the spell fails. On a failure, the spell goes in. When you cast higher than third level, it can cancel spells equal to whatever level you cast Counterspell at. Sam Riegel's 9th level Counterspell in Critical Role Campaign 1 is an example of how sometimes that's the right move to make.
I'll Counterspell.
Okay, shit. Never mind. What level?
9.
Oh. Oh. That was pretty clutch.
That's right. You used your wish last night.
Well, that definitely works.
There are a few key things here that matter as we try to break this spell. First, we make an ability check, which means later we will be finding ways to boost our ability checks. This way, we'll be able to land our counterspell way more often. The other part is the requirement that the person counterspelling has to see the person casting the spell. We will play with this requirement so that we can cast our counterspell in a way where it cannot be counterspelled, helping us win those classic, I cast counterspell, well I counterspell their counterspell, mage versus mage battles. With the basics of counterspell out of the way, let's see what things can help us make it more powerful, starting with races. The Halfling race gets a racial feature called Lucky, which says that when you roll a 1 on the d20 for an attack roll, ability check, or saving throw, you can re-roll the die and must use the new roll. Not super important for Counterspell, but being able to re-roll 1s on ability checks does meaningfully improve your likelihood of interrupting someone casting a spell. The Hobgoblin race gets a feature called Fortune from the Many, which says if you miss with an attack roll or fail an ability check, remember ability checks are what matters here, or a saving throw, you can draw on your Bonds of Reciprocity to gain a bonus to the roll equal to the number of allies you can see within 30 feet of you, maximum bonus of +3, and we can use this equal to our proficiency bonus times per long rest. This is much better than the Halfling ability, allowing us to add basically 3 extra levels of spell interrupting ability to our counterspell. Quite nice. The Autognome has a feature called Built for Success. This lets you add a d4 to one attack roll, ability check, or saving throw you make, and you do so after seeing the d20 roll, and you are allowed to use this a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus per long rest. Again, here we get anywhere from 1 to 4 extra spell levels we can interrupt. We can do it several times per day. It is a nice little boost to our counterspelling ability. Those are the races which have like the easy benefits that can help with counterspell. Let's talk about classes now. Bards get a feature at 2nd level called Jack of All Trades. This feature lets you add half your proficiency bonus, rounded down, to any ability check you make that doesn't already include your proficiency bonus. Remember how we said Counterspell requires an ability check? You see how this says we get to add half our proficiency bonus to ability checks? That means we get to add half of our proficiency bonus to all of our Counterspell checks. With a 20 charisma and the +6 proficiency bonus you get in the endgame, that is a +8 on your counterspell checks, and that's before you add any other benefits to it. A truly nice feature, and makes taking counterspell as one of your magical secrets as a bard very much worth it. Now, the College of Lore subclass for bards gets a feature called Peerless Skill, and this reads, starting at 14th level, when you make an ability check, you can expend 1 use of your bardic inspiration. Roll that die and add that number to your ability check, which means we get to add our bardic inspiration die potentially to these counterspell checks. This is a really powerful ability for the College of Lore bard. It lets you make your counterspells so much more likely to succeed. Adding a D10 or a D12 to this check, massive. An average of 5 to 6 extra spell levels that you can just make go poof. The Peace Domain Cleric gets a feature called Emboldening Bond at first level, which reads, you can forge an empowering bond among people who are at peace with one another. As an action, choose a number of willing creatures within 30 feet of you, potentially including yourself, equal to your proficiency bonus. You create a magical bond among them for 10 minutes, and all those creatures can roll a d4 and add it to an attack, an ability check, or a saving throw it makes once per turn. And you can create this aura a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, so most fights you'll have it. Again, this lets you add a d4 to the ability check, and technically you can do it on yourself if you multi-class cleric with something that gets counterspell. Not huge, but works if you do it or if someone in your party does it. The rogue gets a capstone feature called Stroke of Luck, which reads, at 20th level you have an uncanny knack for succeeding when you need to. If your attack misses a target within range, you can turn this miss into a hit. Alternatively, if you fail an ability check, you can treat the d20 roll as a 20. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a rest. Rogues are obviously not the best counterspell class, but arcane tricksters do get access to counterspell. And with this capstone ability, once per day you basically get to make your counterspell stop any spell you want. Your opponent casts Wish, doesn't matter. You have counterspell and Stroke of Luck, so you blow it up with a little 3rd level spell slot. Is this worth 20 levels in Rogue? That's between you and whatever gods you have forsaken. Rogues also get the Cunning Action feature, and I want to talk about that briefly, because I think how this works is going to depend a lot on your table. I'm going to go over what it says rules is written, but this interpretation may not apply at your table. Like we were talking about, counterspell often leads to like mage versus mage battles, where the enemy mage casts something, you counterspell it, the enemy mage counterspells your counterspell, so their spell still goes off. Someone else in your party with counterspell counterspells that, their apprentice counterspells the person in your party, etc., until a whole bunch of things have been depleted and eventually the spell either goes or doesn't go. However, counterspell has a requirement that you must see the person casting the spell that you were trying to interrupt. This led me to an interesting question. If you cast counterspell from hidden, then does it become something that cannot be counterspelled? If you hide, then you gain benefits described in the Unseen Attackers and Targets section in the PHB. This section states, combatants often try to escape their foes' notice by hiding, casting the invisibility spell, or lurking in darkness. When you attack a target that you can't see, you have disadvantage on the attack roll. This is true whether you're guessing the target's location or you're targeting a creature you can hear but not see. When a creature can't see you, you have advantage on attack rolls against it. If you are hidden, both unseen and unheard, when you make an attack, you give away your location when the attack hits or misses. That last paragraph is the important one here, because it says we give our location when we make an attack, which we are not doing. We are casting a spell that does not require an attack. So are we giving away our location? It would seem like, no, it doesn't. Counterspell doesn't require a verbal component, and we need to be out of line of sight to be hidden, so our somatic component is going to be hidden. However, before you get too excited about hiding, remember you need to be entirely unseen and also have the ability to see the person casting. Your DM is likely to be stingy about places you can simultaneously break line of sight from your enemy and also keep your own line of sight on that enemy. If your DM is really generous and lets you get this combination, then hiding will be valuable. I do not think I would often let players get this benefit because of the competing line of sight requirements, but your table and DM may be different. If your DM is more generous than me, then things like the Rogue's Cunning action, which let you hide as a bonus action, become way more powerful. This would similarly apply to features like the Ranger's Vanish feature or any other feature that lets you hide. That's all I'm going to say about hiding, because I'm not convinced they work without something weird like X-ray vision helping you make it work. Now, sorcerers. At 3rd level, sorcerers get a feature called Metamagic, which lets them change their spell casting to make it more powerful. One of these features is really important for Counterspell and will be an important part of the build at the end of this video. The important one we need to make sure to take is Subtle Spell, which reads, when you cast a spell, you can spend 1 sorcery point to cast it without any somatic or verbal components. This is powerful because it means we can cast Counterspell without moving, which means our enemy has no idea we are counterspelling. This makes our Counterspell something that cannot be countered, super powerful, and pretty cheap at only 1 sorcerer point. Later in this video, I'll even explain how you can get this without taking sorcerer levels. Sorcerers also get a feature called Magic Guidance at level 5, which can help out. This feature reads, you can tap into your inner wellspring of magic to try to conjure success from failure. When you make an ability check that fails, you can spend 1 sorcery point to re-roll the d20, and you must use the new roll, potentially turning the failure into a success. Like we've said before, Counterspell's an ability check. This gives us a chance to turn a failure into a success. Super helpful, and again, pretty cheap in terms of sorcerer points. Some sorcerers' origins also get a couple useful features. Arguably, the Trance of Order that the Clockwork Soul gets counts. This feature reads, at 14th level, you gain the ability to align your consciousness to the endless calculations of Mechanus. As a bonus action, you can enter this state for 1 minute. For the duration, attack rolls against you can't benefit from advantage, and whenever you make an attack roll, an ability check, or a saving throw, you can treat a roll of 9 or lower on the d20 as a 10. Once you use this, you can't use it again unless you spend 5 sorcery points. Not a super broken feature, but as we mentioned before, the Counterspell check is an ability check. And if you combine this feature with a +5 charisma modifier, we can basically guarantee our Counterspell lands on any spell of 5th or lower. And this feature stacks with other abilities we have discussed, which can make this more powerful. The Wild Magic Sorcerer gets a useful feature at level 1 called Tides of Chaos. This feature reads, starting at 1st level, you can manipulate the forces of chance and chaos to gain advantage on 1 attack roll, ability check, or saving throw. Once you do so, you must finish a long rest before you can use this feature again. Anytime you use this feature, the DM can have you roll on the Wild Magic Surge table immediately after you cast a sorcerer spell of 1st level or higher. You then regain the use of this feature. Another feature that lets us re-roll ability checks, potentially turning a failure into a success. Moving on from Sorcerer, the Warlock gets a couple things which could potentially help. This includes the Pact of the Talisman, which reads, your patron grants you an amulet, a talisman that can aid the wearer when the need is great. When the wearer fails an ability check, they can add a d4 to the roll, potentially turning the roll into a success. This benefit can be used a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and it's restored when you finish a long rest. Since Counterspell is an ability check, that means we can add the d4, potentially turning failure into success. A nice little boost. The Fiend Patron also has a feature called Dark One's Own Luck, which can help us as well. It reads, starting at 6th level, you can call on your patron to alter fate in your favor. When you make an ability check or a saving throw, you can use this feature to add a d10 to your roll. Then you have to wait till you complete a rest to do it again. A d10 is huge, on average an extra 5 to 6 levels of spell breaking ability on your check. A wonderful little bonus. Wizards also get a couple features. The School of Abjuration wizard gets one called Improved Abjuration, which reads, Beginning at 10th level, when you cast an abjuration spell that requires you to make an ability check as part of casting the spell, as in Counterspell and Dispel Magic, you add your proficiency bonus to that ability check. This is massive, adding +4 to every check when we get this feature, which scales to +6. With a +5 intelligence, that means at level 10, our average counterspell becomes 19, enough to stop a 9th level spell. A huge feature. The School of Divination gets another useful feature called Portent. This feature reads, starting at 2nd level, when you choose this school, glimpses of the future begin to press in on your awareness. When you finish a long rest, roll 2d20s and record the numbers rolled. You can replace any attack roll, saving throw, or ability check made by you or a creature that you can see with one of these foretelling rolls. You must choose to do so before the roll, and you can replace a roll in this way only once per turn. You can only use each roll once. So if you ended up rolling high on Portent, you can throw that in for a counterspell. There's a few spells which actually can make our counterspell more powerful. This includes the cantrip Guidance, which reads, you touch one willing creature. Once before the spell ends, the target can roll a d4 and add the number rolled to one ability check of its choice. That means if you can cast Guidance on yourself, or someone can cast it on you, then when you make the ability check for Counterspell, you can add a d4, potentially turning a failure into a success. I didn't see any great 1st level spells that help us, but at 2nd level we have Enhanceability, which reads, you touch a creature and bestow upon it a magical enhancement. Choose one of the following effects, and it lists ones for each of the different ability scores. You would pick your spellcasting ability. While you're concentrating on this, or if someone else can concentrate on it for you, you gain advantage on checks associated with that ability. Again, huge for Counterspell. Besides Enhanceability, we should also talk about Invisibility. Invisibility reads, a creature you touch becomes invisible until the spell ends. The spell ends for a target that attacks or casts a spell. Remember all my annoying prattling on about hiding before? Would you believe me if I said the invisible condition helps solve these problems? Invisible means that mostly we cannot be seen, which means we cannot be counterspelled. And Jeremy Crawford has confirmed that the invisible condition ends after we cast the counterspell, which cannot be counterspelled unless the enemy can see us while invisible. I'm not going to try to find every way you can gain invisibility, but having invisibility seems to let you counterspell without the risk of being counterspelled. And hey, you know what's better than invisibility? Greater invisibility. Greater Invisibility is a 4th level spell that reads, your creature you touch becomes invisible until the spell ends. And the great thing about this one is you stay invisible even when you're casting Counterspell or any of your other spells. Is it a little bit rude to use something like this? Maybe, but it's honestly what the spell is built for. There is another way to win mage versus mage counterspell wars, and that is to increase the number of people who can cast counterspell in your party. For 7th level spells, there's one that lets you do that, but it is a bit expensive. Simulacrum states you shape an illusory duplicate of one beast or humanoid that is within range for the entire casting time of the spell. The duplicate is a creature, partially real and formed from ice or snow, and it can take actions or otherwise be affected as a normal creature. It appears to be the same as the original, but has half the creature's hit point maximum and is formed without any equipment. Otherwise, the illusion uses all the statistics of the creature it duplicates, except that it is a construct. The simulacrum is friendly to you and creatures you designate. It obeys your spoken commands, moving and acting in accordance with your wishes, and acting on your turn in combat. The simulacrum lacks the ability to learn or become more powerful. It never increases its level, nor can it regain expended spell slots. This spell is helpful because it gives you another little mini-me that can also counterspell and also has most of your features, so if you make your counterspell better, its counterspell will get better. For 8th level spells, if your counterspell is cast with charisma, like if you are a warlock, bard, or sorcerer, then there's a really good spell you can use to basically make sure that your counterspell succeeds. Glibness. Until the spell ends, when you make a charisma check, you can replace the number you roll with a 15. Additionally, no matter what you say, magic that would determine if you are telling the truth indicates that you were being truthful. What this spell means is that if you have a +5 charisma modifier, then every single counterspell you cast succeeds, even against a 9th level spell, because 15 plus 5 equals 20, and that's more than the 19 DC for 9th level spells. It's a huge spell to pull out, but it can be a battle changer. 9th level spells, Foresight works, I guess. You touch a willing creature and bestow a limited ability to see the immediate future. For the duration, the target can't be surprised and has advantage on attack rolls, ability checks, and saving throws. Additionally, other creatures have disadvantage against you. This is a far more expensive way than enhanced ability to get advantage on ability checks, but it does work basically all day. It helps with counterspell checks and everything else. Besides spells, there's also a couple of feats which can come in handy, with the most important arguably being lucky. Lucky reads, you have inexplicable luck that seems to kick in at just the right moment. You have 3 luck points. Whenever you make an attack roll, an ability check, or a saving throw, you can spend 1 luck point to roll an additional d20. You can choose to spend 1 of your luck points after you roll the die, but before the outcome is determined. You choose which of the d20s is used for the attack roll, ability check, or saving throw. Main benefit here, again, is getting to add that extra d20, potentially turning our failures into successes. The other feat you should consider is Metamagic Adept. This feat reads, you have learned how to exert your will on your spells to alter how they function. You learn 2 metamagic options of your choice from the sorcerer class. You can only use 1 metamagic option on a spell when you cast it, unless the option says otherwise. When you reach a level, yada 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 yada. So we have 2 sorcery points to spend on metamagic, and we are using Subtle Spell because we already talked about how powerful Subtle Spell is. Besides these feats, and before we get into the build, I also want to briefly talk about things your party can do to help make your counterspell more powerful. Does your party have an Artificer in it? They should consider using Flash of Genius to help you. Flash of Genius reads, starting at 7th level, you gain the ability to come up with solutions under pressure. When you or another creature you can see within 30 feet of you makes an ability check or a saving throw, you can use your reaction to add your intelligence modifier to the roll. They can do this a number of times equal to their intelligence modifier, and then they need to take a long rest. If your Artificer friend has a high intelligence, they can help you add +4 or +5 to the roll, another massive bonus. As I've talked about on here before, and something I got wrong in my tank video, you cannot do this on yourself because it takes your reaction. Does your party have a bard in it? Then their bardic inspiration can help you as well. Bardic inspiration reads, you can inspire others through stirring words or music. To do so, you must use a bonus action on your turn to choose 1 creature other than yourself within 60 feet. That creature gets your bardic inspiration die, which starts as a d6 and scales to a d12. When they make an ability check in the next 10 minutes or other d20 rolls, they can add that die, potentially turning a failure into a success. That is several extra levels of spell busting power just sitting there and waiting for you to take advantage of it. Does your party have a Circle of the Stars druid in it? Well, then on days they roll a wheel on their Cosmic Omen feature, they can help you out. This feature reads, whenever you finish a long rest, you can consult your star map for omens. When you do so, roll a die. Until you finish your long rest, you have access to a special reaction based on whether you rolled an even or an odd number on the die. Wheel, which we need, is even. Whenever a creature you can see within 30 feet of you is about to make an attack roll, a saving throw, or an ability check, you can use your reaction to roll a d6 and add the number rolled to the total. Do you have a Rune Knight fighter in your group? If they carve a storm room, they can potentially help you out. The feature reads, using this rune you can glimpse the future like a storm giant seer. While wearing or carrying an object inscribed with this rune, you have advantage on Arcana checks, and you can't be surprised as long as you aren't incapacitated. In addition, you can invoke the rune as a bonus action to enter a prophetic state for 1 minute or until you're incapacitated. Until the state ends, when you or another creature you can see within 60 feet of you makes an attack roll, a saving throw, or an ability check, you can use your reaction to cause the roll to have advantage or disadvantage. Because this uses your reaction, it cannot help your own counterspells, which also use your reaction. But if someone in your party has this, they can give you advantage once per rest on a counterspell check, which is nice. Do you have a wild magic sorcerer in your party? Then potentially, their Ben Luck feature can help you. This feature reads, starting at 6th level, you have the ability to twist fate using your wild magic. When another creature you can see makes an attack roll, an ability check, or a saving throw, you can use your reaction and spend 2 sorcery points to roll 1d4 and apply the number rolled as a bonus or a penalty. 2 sorcery points for a d4 is a bit expensive, I'll admit, but could be worth it to turn a failure into a success. Do you have a gnome in your party? They can take the Bountiful Luck feat to potentially help you out. This feature reads, when an ally you can see within 30 feet of you rolls a 1 on the d20 for an attack roll, an ability check, or a saving throw, you can use your reaction to let the ally re-roll the die. The ally must use the new die. Not a great feature, especially since it only works at natural 1 and you only have a 5% chance to roll a nat 1, less if you have advantage, and we've got a couple ways to get advantage now, but can still technically convert a failure to a success, so I included it here. Before we get to the build, I do want to talk about a couple things I thought might work, but after reading the rules, I do not think these work. I'm including them because I want some feedback on how you think these things would work at your table. The Trickery Domain Cleric gets a feature called Invoke Duplicity that maybe works for Counterspell if your DM is quite generous, but I don't think it works. The feature reads, starting at 2nd level, you can use your Channel Divinity to create an illusory duplicate of yourself. As an action, you create a perfect illusion of yourself that lasts for 1 minute or until you lose your concentration. The illusion appears in a space 30 feet or less away from you. As a bonus action, you can move it. It must stay less than 120 feet away, and you can cast spells as though you were in the illusion space, but must use your own senses. Additionally, when both you and your illusion are within 5 feet of a creature, you have advantage on attack rolls against that creature. Okay, this feature uses our senses, so we actually need to be within 60 feet to use this feature. It does not limit itself to cleric spells, which is good because we need it to work with Counterspell. So then the question becomes, can the enemy counterspell the illusion who seems to be casting the counterspell? Because if they can't, then we have a powerful counterspell buff. Unfortunately, Jeremy Crawford says yes, the enemy can. So unless your DM rules it differently, then this won't work. Fun idea, but unfortunately raw, we cannot make this feature work for us. Sorcerers have a metamagic feature that I thought was going to work called Distant Spell. This reads, when you cast a spell that has a range of 5 feet or greater, you can spend 1 sorcery point to double the range of the spell. When you cast a spell that has a range of touch, you can spend 1 sorcery point to make the range of the spell 30 feet. This seems like it would be really powerful for Counterspell because it has a range of 60 feet. Having this metamagic would make it initially seem like we could be more like 120 feet away, meaning we could counterspell, but our enemy couldn't counterspell us. However, I don't think that actually works, rules as written. The specific trigger for counterspell is when you see a creature within 60 feet of you casting a spell. If it said a creature within range of you casting a spell, then this strategy would work. But since the trigger has an explicit distance they need to be within range to you, the extra range cannot help. I was really excited about this strategy too, but unfortunately it seems to break raw. Maybe your DM will be more permissive though. The Order of Scribes Wizard, my favorite wizard subclass, gets a great feature, which I thought worked, and I incorrectly used when I was playing an Order of Scribes Wizard. Sorry about that, Austin, but I actually realized I was misreading it when playing it. The feature reads, you can conjure forth the mind of your awakened spellbook. As a bonus action, you can cause the mind to manifest as a tiny spectral object. It can move around, it can hear, you can see through it, and the important part, whenever you cast a wizard spell on your turn, you can cast it as if you were in the spectral mind space instead of your own, using its senses. You can do so a number of times per day equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. As a bonus action, you can cause your mind to move, stops manifesting if someone dispels it, etc., etc., etc. Back when I was playing a wizard, I thought I was able to place my manifest mind within 60 feet of the enemy, keep myself more than 60 feet away, and I would transfer my senses to the mind and then potentially use my reaction to cast Counterspell from the mind. Because my senses were in the mind, I gave the DM advantage on attacks against me and gave myself disadvantage on saves, but then would have counterspells that could not be counterspelled because I was casting it and I was casting it as if I was in the physical location of the mind, putting me within range for the triggers and stuff. But I was not actually within range for the enemy's triggers. However, this does not work for several reasons. 1. Manifest Mind says on your turn. It does not say on an opponent's turn. Your DM may rule that your counterspell can still be counterspelled because Manifest Mind reads you cast as if you were in the spectral mind space, so your DM may rule that you are effectively in range for the enemy counterspell. 3. A strict reading of counterspell may not work because it requires the enemy to be within 60 feet of you. So again, just like with distance spell, I was trying to play with range, but it just doesn't work. Rules as written. Okay, so with all that handled, let's take a look and see if we can make a really powerful counterspell build. There's a lot of great backbones for a strong counterspelling mage. You can go School of Abjuration, get that improved Abjuration at level 10. That's massive. You can go Sword Luck, combine Dark One's own luck with magical guidance and things like that, with Subtle Spell to really boost it up. I think for the backbone, I'm going to go Bard because I want Jack of all trades and I want glibness. I'm going to take some levels in Sorcerer as well, but Bard is going to be the through line for this. Without further ado, let's jump in. For race, I think it makes most sense to go with either Bugbear or Autognome. One of them adds up to a +3 and the other a D4 on ability checks. Mathematically pretty close and both proficiency times per long rest. Go with whichever one fits your world better, whichever one has features that work well with you. I think since I will primarily be putting points into Charisma and Constitution, we will go with Autognome since they have an unarmored defense. That will help us out since we will not mostly have great armor choices. If your GM is not about automatons in their world, then consider Hobgoblins. If they're not okay with monstrous races either, then consider Variant Human or Custom Origins. You can take one of the feats in this build a little bit earlier, based on whatever you think is going to work best. For background, I almost always say pick your favorite. None of them super matter for this. You could pick one of the Planescape ones that give you free feats, but that's cheating, let's be honest. I went with Investigator and I imagine that my Autognome was created specifically to investigate the ill-fated schemes of magic users. For abilities, we're doing point buy so that everyone can get the same scores. 8 strength, 14 dex, 15 con, 10 intelligence, 10 wisdom, and 14 charisma. Going to put our +2 into Charisma to make it 16 and our +1 into Constitution to make it 16. With that set up, it's time to discuss level 1. At level 1, we're a wild magic sorcerer. I know. I just said that I was going to do a Bard backbone and then started with Sorcerer. That delays us getting Counterspell, delays us getting Glibness, delays us getting Peerless Skill, and delays our first ASI or feat. But it gives us some useful spells, useful cantrips, Constitution saving throw proficiency, and the Tides of Chaos feature, which will end up giving us occasional advantage on our counterspell checks once we get counterspells. For spells, first level here, mostly pick your favorite. Most of the first level spells I would take compete for reaction, so we'll use them early on but less once we have counterspell. These include things like Shield, Absorb Elements, and Silvery Barbs. For cantrips, again, pick your favorites, but take at least one decent damaging cantrips, since the Bard list will not have a ton of options for that. I would take Mending 2 if you went Auto Gnome because it just makes sense. We are not super survivable or powerful at this level, having 9 hit points and an AC of 15, so be a little bit careful. After this, we're going to be racing through until we get Counterspell. Level 2, we're adding a level in Bard. Pick whatever skill and musical proficiency fit your character. For spells, mostly pick your favorites again. I would try to pick up good concentration control spells, things like Hideous Laughter, Bane, Fairy Fire, or non-concentration control spells like Command. Level 3, we're adding another level in Bard. This gives us our powerful Jack of all trades feature, which will come in handy once we have Counterspell, as well as Song of Rest, which helps us help our allies when they take a short rest. Level 4, we're adding another level in Bard, and we get to pick our Bard College. We are taking College of Lore. Pick your favorites for expertise and bonus proficiencies. And we also get Cutting Words, which uses our reaction, so we will almost never worry about it. When you do need to worry about it, like if there's no one for you to counterspell or this is a life or death situation, Cutting Words lets you subtract your Bardic Inspiration die from one of your enemy's d20 rolls. Not saving throws though. Attacks, ability checks, or damage, not saving throws. For spells, we want to make sure to take Invisibility and then probably also Enhance Ability because those are the second level spells which boost Counterspell once we get it. We probably won't be using those often, so consider taking things like Silence to shut down verbal components for a spellcaster. Though note, Counterspell does not have verbal components, and this does not prevent enemy spellcasters from counterspelling you. Lesser Restoration for a great healing spell, Hold Person or Suggestion for powerful control spells, or See Invisibility if you're worried about your DM using the invisibility tricks I discussed above. Level 5, we are taking another level in Bard and get our first ability score increase or feat. My first instinct is to bump our Charisma because that improves every counterspell we make, as well as every spell attack and our spell save DC. Plus, we get more Bardic Inspirations, but mathematically I think I'm going to need to take a feat, and so I'm between either Lucky or Metamagic Adept. Arguably, we should pick Lucky. It's a little more versatile. I think mathematically maybe a touch better. We can potentially get Metamagic eventually by shifting back to Sorcerer, but I really want to race to Peerless skill and maybe even push all the way to level 15 in Bard before I go back to Sorcerer. Flavor-wise, I love counterspells that cannot be counterspelled more than I love re-rolling and tracking luck points. So I'm going to take Metamagic Adept. You pick whatever works best for you. Remember, you're taking subtle spells so that once you get counterspelled, you will be able to counterspell without getting counterspelled. Level 6, we are taking another level in Bard. We get Font of Inspiration, so now our Bardic Inspirations reset on a short rest. Nice. And we can bump those out more often. We also get third level spells. I would consider Dispel Magic to remove spell effects, Hypnotic Pattern for control, Slow for control, or things like Tiny Hut or Tongues for utility. Slow is my favorite control spell against spellcasters, so really look at that. Remember, Jack of all trades works on Dispel Magic as well. Level 7, we're taking another level in Bard, and we finally get the nearly worthless Counter Charm and the super powerful Counterspell. Counterspell comes from our additional Magic Secrets feature, which lets us learn spells from other class lists. Please take Counterspell at this level. Other than that, pick something you like. Bless for buff, Spirit Guardians to whack people near you. I took Guidance, even though it's just a cantrip, because if we get a setup round, it can be a useful cast to make our counterspell more powerful. In an actual game, I probably wouldn't take this, but here for this build, we're trying to maximize our counterspell. So now that we have counterspell, let's check in on how it does. We have a +3 from our Charisma and a +1 from our Jack of all trades, giving us a +4 on counterspell checks. This means we expect to be able to take out a 4th level spell using our counterspell. We have Metamagic Adept, so we can subtle spell cast this twice per day, making our counterspell impossible to counterspell. Additionally, we can use our Tides of Chaos feature to give us advantage once per long rest, or until the DM makes us roll on the Wild Magic table, which gives us an extra d20 on that roll. Furthermore, we can use our Built for Success feature to add an additional d4. This means that we have a +4, plus potentially advantage, plus we can add another d4, and that gets you close to an expected value of like 21 on the die if we burn all those resources on a single roll. Level 8, if you decided not to take Metamagic Adept, you might want to jump back to Sorcerer, take 2 more levels, and get Metamagic. Like I said before, I am racing to Peerless Skill and maybe Glibness, so I am sticking with Bard here, finally getting 4th level spell slots. I'm taking Greater Invisibility for the Counterspell reasons we discussed before. Level 9, we're sticking with Bard, we get our next ASI or feat. Again, it might be worth taking a Charisma boost, increasing Bardic Inspiration, Counterspell checks, and our spell attacks and DCs. However, I think mathematically, the best choice is to take the Lucky feat. 3 rerolls on Counterspell checks is massively powerful. Additionally, our proficiency bonus has increased to +4, so our Jack of all trades bonus has increased to +2. This means our Counterspell check is now a +3 from Charisma, +2 from Jack of all trades, for an expected roll of about 15. To this we can add our Built for Success, our Tides of Chaos, our Lucky rolls, bringing our expected value to something like a 23. Mostly you don't want to roll all those dice if you can avoid it, but it's good to have it when you need it. Level 10, as I said before, we are stuck with Bard for a while on this build now. So yeah, back to Bard. We're level 10 with 9 levels in Bard. We get 5th level spell slots. None of these are super important for Counterspell. Arguably, Mislead can work, but not worth it in my opinion. I would consider Dominate Person, Hold Monster, Animate Objects, Telepathic Bond, Scrying, Seeming, and Synaptic Static, depending on your party. Level 11, we are still a Bard, 10 levels now. We get more expertise, put wherever you want. You gain 2 more magical secret spells. None of them specifically apply to Counterspell at this point, so pick what you want. Wall of Force is a super useful control ability. Vortex Warp is fun for mobility. There's a ton of fun choices. Pick what works for you. Level 12, we are taking another Bard level and we get 6th level spells. None of these are super specific to Counterspell, though Eyebite can give your enemy disadvantage on ability checks, hurting their Counterspell, but this build is about boosting our Counterspell, not hurting other people's. Seriously consider Hero's Feast if you want to boost your party, Mass Suggestion for control, or True Seeing if your enemy mage is a dick. Level 13, we are a 12th level Bard and we get another ASI or feat, and we finally get to boost our Charisma. Boosting our Charisma to an 18 gives us a +4. This means for Counterspell we now have a +6 by default, and then we can stack the rest of our ridiculous features on top of it, making it like an expected 24, I think. A really nice way to take out annoying spellcasters. Level 14, we're a 13th level Bard, we get 7th level spells. There's tons of great options here, most of which are not directly tied to Counterspell, so pick your favorites. I would take Force Cage for control, Magnificent Mansion to make every long rest luxurious, Resurrection if it's important in your party, and Teleport to open up the map. Level 15, we finally get the feature we have been waiting for because we are a level 14 Bard, and as a College of Lore Bard, that means now we get Peerless Skill, which means on any ability check, including our Counterspell checks, we can add our Bardic Inspiration die, which is a D10 that goes up to a D12 at our next Bard level. This means that with all our different bullshit we can add on our Counterspell is up to something wild, like a 29 expected value. We are doing so good at blocking magic and it's about to get so much better. We also get to pick more magical secrets, pick your favorites. I chose Soul Cage because it's a really cool warlock spell that lets you do a bunch of different things with one dead person in one spell slot. I also took Simulacrum for breaking the Counterspell action economy. At level 16, we are sticking with Bard because we really want Glibness. We also upgrade our Bardic Inspiration die. With Glibness active, the lowest we can roll on our Counterspell check is now a 21, enough to take out any spell. Without Glibness active, we still have enough resources that we can basically guarantee our Counterspell will land. We're a terrifying sight for any mage who sees us as we basically shut them down. At level 17, I'm going to switch back to Sorcerer. I understand if you want to stick Bard to get level 9 spells, but I want to be able to do more subtle spell casting, and hopping back to Sorcerer gives us Font of Magic. This lets us convert our spell slots to sorcery points and vice versa, allowing us to burn more spell slots to get more sorcery points. We now have a total of 4 points, and we can keep those full, so way more of our counterspells can be subtle spells, and any spell we don't want counterspelled can also be counterspelled. Oh, also, our proficiency bonus went up again and we have a 9th level spell slot. This means with Glibness active, the lowest we can roll on our Counterspell check is now a 22, and we can cast Glibness twice. Without Glibness active, we still have a +7 we add to every Counterspell check. We can add our D12 Bardic Inspiration die, our D4 Built for Success die. We can roll it with advantage, and we can basically re-roll it whenever we want. Level 18, we're taking a 3rd level in Sorcerer, but again, I understand if you're just trying to get to Bard. I want some more Sorcerer points and a little more meta magic so I can take Heightened Spell, giving one target disadvantage on a saving throw on our spells, letting me land my big control spells. For 2nd level Sorcerer spells, I'm going to make a strange recommendation and say Misty Step, because mobility can help us stay in range of enemy mages. Level 19 and level 20, we're taking Bard to get 9th level spells. You could stick with Sorcerer if you really want magical guidance so that sometimes we can reroll, but I mean, come on. We never need it if Glibness is active, and if Glibness is not active, we have Tides of Chaos and Lucky to get several of that already, so I'm going Bard. We get another ASI, I'm going to use it to max out my Charisma. Glibness active, the lowest we can roll is a 23. Without Glibness, the lowest we get a +8 plus all of our abilities. We can interrupt basically any spell. For 9th level spells, arguably, you could take Foresight to give yourself advantage on those counterspell checks. Frankly, I would probably take Power Word Kill, because the best way to counterspell a mage is to make sure they're dead, and they have very few hit points, those mages. That's about it. There's a lot of things you could have done based on this video to make an effective build. 10 levels in Abjuration Wizard makes you very good at Counterspell. Combine it with Meta Magic Adept or a few levels in Sorcerer, and whoo, we're cooking. Make a Sorlock with a Fiend Patron so you can roll and eventually add a D10 to the rolls, and also have Subtle Spell and Magical Guidance. Go just Warlock so you can eventually get Glibness. Just make sure you end combat quickly because you don't have a ton of spell slots, but similarly, it's pretty clear how you could convert this spell to just a straight Bard build, right? You skip the Sorcerer, you get to Glibness that much sooner, and then you get to 9th level spells that much sooner afterwards. I love Counterspell. It fits with my somewhat technical style of play, but I understand why Wizards of the Coast were worried about its tendency to bog down combat, and sometimes it feels like half the reasons they make sorcerers fight with their hands behind their backs is because they're worried about things like my subtle spell shenanigans, because it messes with the expected counterspell. I counterspell that counterspell, I counterspell that counterspell, I counter that counterspell, I counterspell that counterspell, I counter that counterspell type of mage versus mage battle, which can tend to occur at high levels of play. Anyways, before you and your table upgrade to the new player's handbook, or before your DM starts pulling too many monsters from Monsters of the Multiverse, throw a bard at them that shuts their mages down. Did I miss anything in this way too long video? Did anyone actually make it to this point? Let me know in the comments. There's PDFs of character sheets at different levels for the build linked in the description. And thank you for joining me.